Hey guys, welcome back, and if you're new, hello, my name is Gabby and welcome to my strange little YouTube channel. Now today I have a very interesting and heartbreaking case for you guys, but before I get into the case, I just want to say that today's video is sponsored, and I never do sponsored videos when it comes to my case videos because I feel like it takes away from the content of the video. But the item that I'm talking about in today's video does correlate with what I'm talking about. Today's video is sponsored by iSpecle, and iSpecle sells a device that could help save lives. They sell a personal self-defense alarm. It is a small keychain. It is very lightweight. You can attach it to your purse, to your backpack, to your keys, anywhere that is easy to access. Basically, to summarize this little gadget, it is very, very loud. If you feel like somebody is trying to harm you while you are out on your own, all you have to do is pull this little strap and it will get the attention of anybody who is 600 feet away from you. It is 130 decibels loud, which is very, very loud. This is something that I've carried myself for a few months now since my aunt gave me one, and I feel a lot safer having one. I had the opportunity to work with a company who sells them, and I was all for it because I want to spread the word about these. I will put the link down below to where you can buy these. It is $14.49 for a 4-pack. Now the company did send me 4 of them. I am going to use one of them as a backup for the one that I already have with me. But the other 3 that were sent to me, I have another rose gold one, I have a black one, and a blue one. If you guys want to win one of those, I'm giving away 3 to 3 of you guys. So if you want to win that, all you have to do is follow me on Instagram and comment down below your username on Instagram so I can contact you through there. This is something that I feel like everybody should have. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you are a child, if you are a grown woman, a grown man, a person who is older in age. It doesn't matter. You can never be too safe in this world, and that is something that I preach on my channel a lot. So make sure to check them out and enter my giveaway. And with that being said, let's just get into the video. Jeanna Dale North was born December 12th, 1981. In 1993, she was a beautiful, outgoing 11-year-old girl living in Fargo, North Dakota with her siblings and parents Barbara Sue and John North. Gina's nickname was Cobby, that's what people called her. On June 28th, 1993, it was a beautiful day out, so like most children back then, she was trying to enjoy the good weather and be out of the house as much as possible. She did a little swimming at Fargo's Island Park pool, and then she was picked up by her father after the pool closed and driven to her friend's house. When her father dropped her off at her friend's home, it was still light out, and Cobby begged him to extend her curfew just a little bit so she could rollerblade with her friends. Her father agreed, but asked her to please be home by 10:30 p.m. Cobby's friend's home was only located about a block away from where the North family lived, so nobody thought it was going to be any sort of an issue for her to make it home at the end of the day. Nobody thought she was going to be unsafe. This is something she did a million times before. So the girls rollerbladed for a bit. During their rollerblading, they stopped to say hi to a neighbor who was outside at the time installing lights on his pickup truck. As 10:30 was nearing, they stopped at a friend's home to say goodnight, and then it was time for Cobby to go home. Even though she had walked or rollerbladed a million times from her friend's home to her home, no matter what time it was still dark outside at this point, and her friend asked her if she wanted her mom to drive her home, and Cobby insisted she would be fine. So her friend rollerbladed back to her home. She stood outside her front door and watched as Cobby disappeared around the corner. She thought she would be fine from there, so she went back inside. Cobby's father had fallen asleep watching a documentary on TV by this time, and both him and his wife slept through the night. When her father, John North, woke up the next morning, he did what most parents do, and he checked on all of his children. He checked on his daughter Jessica, who was 15 at the time. She was in her room. He checked on his daughter Jennifer, who was 13 at the time. She was in her room. And then he went to check on Cobby. She was not in her room. She was not in the living room. She was not in the kitchen. She was not in the bathroom. She was not outside. She was nowhere to be found. At first they were calm, thinking she simply spent the night at a friend's house, so they decided to call her friend's home, but she wasn't there. They called all the parents in the neighborhood and no one knew where Cobby had went, so they decided to call the police. The man who had been installing lights on his truck the night before was asked if he knew where Cobby was or he had seen her, and he said no. This man's name was Kyle Bell. Many, including Cobby's parents at the time, viewed him as a quiet but hard-working man, always outside working on something. Someone that didn't strike anyone as the type of man who could commit a heinous crime. John North had only met Kyle Bell really on one occasion. It was about a month before Cobby disappeared. It was during a Memorial Day weekend barbecue, and John needed a wrench, so he decided to go ask his neighbor Kyle if he had one, because he knew that Kyle was always outside working on stuff and he probably had a wrench. This was the only time he ever really communicated with Kyle before this incident. But Kyle Bell had a past that nobody in the neighborhood knew about. 3 years before Cobby's disappearance, he served only 10 weeks of a 2-year prison sentence in the state of South Dakota for child molestation. After a little bit of investigating into everyone in the neighborhood, they looked at everyone as a suspect because she was obviously abducted from her neighborhood. They came across Kyle Bell's file, and after looking through the information, he was a suspect immediately. Upon questioning him, he insisted he had no involvement in her disappearance, that he only knew her as one of the kids from the neighborhood. They had no evidence to really tie him to her disappearance, so he was crossed off the suspect list. Then something strange happened in Cass County, North Dakota. A woman named Mary Hogland was driving when she saw a black pickup truck parked on the bridge over the Cheyenne River and a man standing next to it just looking at the river. This struck the woman as being very odd, but simply drove by figuring it was none of her business. Now, less than a half an hour later, this man stopped at her stepfather's home adjacent to her home and asked for some gas. They gave him some gas in a 5-gallon gas can, and she could see that when the man filled up his tank, that it overflowed almost immediately, which meant he already had gas in the truck. Before leaving, he gave Hogland his name and number. His name was Kyle Bell. They notified police about this man's strange behavior, and police started searching the Cheyenne River, found nothing, and then they went to Kyle Bell's home and he let them look around. Now, originally, when they questioned Kyle Bell as to whether he knew Cobby or not, he said that he only knew her from around the neighborhood. That was his original statement. Before they started searching his truck, he told police that they would probably find her or her friend's hair in the truck because he gave them a ride from Dairy Queen once. Police found this very suspicious, so they asked him why he never mentioned this before, and he said he didn't find it important information. They searched his truck and they didn't find any evidence in there. But police kept searching and searching for months, trying to find any information as to where Cobby could have went. They even brought in a psychic who led them to Devil's Lake, but they found nothing there either. In April of 1994, Kyle Bell was charged with molesting 2 young girls. One was 8 and one was 3. He posted cash bail of $20,000, fled, and didn't show up for court, and this was the first time Cobby's family learned of him having a history of child molestation. At this point, her family was in complete and utter shock about this. They wish that they had some knowledge of this information beforehand. Maybe they could have warned all the children to stay away from him and his house. I mean, they had no idea what to even think of this. At this time, no one knew where Kyle Bell went, but 4 months later, near Denver, Colorado, police noticed a black pickup truck with a North Dakota license plate making routine stops at a gas station. They ran a check on the license plate and realized it belonged to a wanted felon named Kyle Bell, so he was sent back to North Dakota to face his molestation charges. On January 24th, 1995, Kyle Bell appeared in court. And Cobby's mother did what many mothers would have wanted to do. She called Kyle a bastard and tried to climb over the 3-foot barricade in the courtroom. Kyle was set to serve 10 years for each molestation charge, so the 2 that he recently did and then the 1 from years before, that would be 30 years, and then after the 30 years was up, he was going to also get 10 years of supervised parole. During questioning after the trial, they told him that in exchange for a voluntary statement about Gina's disappearance, they would recommend an unspecified sentence to run concurrently with his molestation charges, and that the statute of limitation never expires in a murder charge. Kyle was thrilled to know that he could serve the same sentence for 2 crimes, molestation and murder. So for the next few hours of interviewing, he told authorities what he did to Jeanna North on the night of June 28, 1993. He claimed he sexually assaulted the 11-year-old girl in his garage. When she threatened to tell, he hit her. He said her death was accidental, saying that she was on rollerblades at the time he hit her and she fell backwards and died because of her injuries. He put her limp body in the back of his truck and drove her to the bridge over the Cheyenne River and dumped her in it, tying her to cement blocks. The next day, during a break from a polygraph test, he told Detective Jim Ledoux, "It was an accident, Jim. Shit happens." Just let that sink in. This monster, this sorry excuse for a human being, all he has to say is shit happens. You say shit happens when you stub your toe on the corner of your bed, not when you molest and then murder an 11-year-old innocent little girl. This man was a very sick and twisted individual, and me, myself, and a lot of authorities don't believe that her death was accidental. But police did search the Cheyenne River for years and years, and they found nothing. They did a lot of different tests though. They tied cement blocks to dead pigs that were around the same size and weight as Cobby was and threw them into the river to see kind of where they went. They also threw rollerblades in the river to see where they drifted. They never found the rollerblades, and they never found any of Cobby's remains. Her rollerblades, her clothes, nothing. They have nothing. And a lot of the reason they think they were never able to find her is because the Cheyenne River has a lot of sinkholes, some of those 10 feet deep. She could be down at the bottom of any of these sinkholes, and that's where they think she most likely is. Kyle Bell's trial for the murder of Jeanna Dale North was held in August of 1999, over 4 years later. They did end up finding a cement block and rope from the river that looked like the ones possibly used by Kyle, but they did not present these as evidence in court because they could not prove 100% they were his. Other than this not being used as evidence in court, they also had to throw out his confession because they said it was obtained illegally. The judge did allow the statements Kyle made to Detective Ledoux to be used in court though. The friend of Cobby's did testify in court, and she claimed that Cobby was very fond of Kyle. They actually visited Kyle more than a dozen times within a few-day period before Cobby's disappearance. And she said that Cobby was so close to Kyle that she actually had a nickname for him. She called him Seaman, which she never knew what this meant. Like, Cobby never told her what Seaman meant, but that was her little nickname for him. In the end, they had enough to convict him. After his time serving for his molestation charges, done in 2019, he will be serving a life sentence for the murder of Jeanna Dale North. He couldn't just do his time though, like he deserves. 4 months after the trial, while being moved to maximum security in Oregon, he escaped and was tracked down 88 days later in Dallas, Texas, after being featured on an episode of America's Most Wanted. Now he sits in prison until his days are over. As for Cobby's family, they were obviously just a complete wreck over everything that happened to her. I mean, especially knowing how she died and the fact that they never found her remains and could give her a proper burial. Her parents did end up separating. This happens a lot of the times with parents of children who mysteriously vanished or were murdered.
Today, Gina's sister tells me it's their legacies helping the families cope with loss.
I love my mom because she takes care of me when I'm sick. I love my mom because she cooks the best and because she loves me.
Jennifer North keeps a case full of poetry, photos, and memories of her sister.
She was busy and loud and fun and very, just really spunky.
In 1993, Jennifer was just 13 when that spunky 11-year-old didn't return home after a night with friends.
Cobby's mother passed away in 2009 at the age of 58. 58 is really not that young of an age to pass away naturally, but this does happen. Just like the divorce thing, it happens to a lot of parents who were parents of children who disappeared or were murdered. You just have to think that it's so much stress knowing that you'll either never know what happened to your child or you know what happened to your child. It devours you mentally. And Cobby's sister Jennifer said that her mother was just destroyed over this, and that resulted in an early death. Jennifer says, though, that she does believe that her mother and Kabi are reunited in heaven again.
Now a mother herself, Jennifer finds herself especially vigilant for her own children.
I'm pretty overprotective of my kids. As far as safety and security and sticking together and different things like that.
She also checked the sex offender registry before moving. The national database is among changes sparked by Gina's death. Her case tightens state and federal regulations for convicted offenders, and it's that legacy bringing the family comfort.
She changed the world. She made the world a safer place.
The funds for the search of Kabi's remains are all gone, so the search is over, and the chances of them ever finding her are very slim, but anything can happen. I've seen cases that were 50 years old finally being solved, so there is still a little bit of hope, but they are not currently searching. I think the thing that really makes you step back in this case is the fact that Kyle Bell had a previous history of molesting children, and nobody in the neighborhood knew about this. It isn't like today's time where you can just go on a website where they show, you know, sex offenders in your area and know who to kind of stay away from and to tell your children to stay away from. It wasn't like that back then, and I'm sure all the parents in the neighborhood were just in shock by this information, knowing that he lived there even after he did this to Kabi, and any of their children were also at risk. And of course, if anybody in the neighborhood knew this about him, they would have told their children to stay away from him. I mean, this entire thing could have been prevented. I mean, that's the thing that is just so mind-boggling. I know this case was a bit hard to stomach. I'm sure you can tell by me talking at the end of this video that I'm kind of stuttering and like fumbling through my words and like trying to go over my thoughts correctly, but it really did like hit me hard just researching this case. I wanted to put this in also, like, I had one family member message me this morning about a case that I did regarding one of their family members who disappeared, and it was just one of the sweetest messages I've ever read in my entire life. They said that my video was 100% factual, and it meant a lot to them because there are so many rumors out there about their relative's disappearance, and they said that I'm doing an amazing job and hope that I can help out some families, and they know that what I'm doing is out of, you know, the goodness of my heart, I guess. And I don't know, I just care about these cases, and it means a lot when family members reach out to me and say that I'm doing a good job. Yeah, if you're new to my channel, I promise I'm not always like this in videos, but if you did enjoy watching that video and you're not already, definitely make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification if you want to be updated when I upload videos, just because YouTube has not been notifying people when I upload, so make sure to hit that little bell notification and like the video if you did like the video. And I love you guys so much, and we'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys. And also, like always, a huge thank you to my patrons. I love you guys so much. It's insane to me that so many people support me and are there for me. Seriously, thank you guys.